Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets here for Monday, April 25th. I'm Zach Ewing. We got Jim Derry, Spencer the Guru Urquhart, and Devin Jackson in the house. It is a full house for a special edition of Bayou Bets. This is our mock NFL draft live edition. So in a few minutes, we are going to start our mock bet.nola.com draft, and we will each have a pick. We'll also incorporate the Caesars odds into that pick. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see who the Saints take at number 16, number 19. It's going to go fast, no more than a minute per pick. So we're going to get this done in less than an hour. And that actually includes what we're going to start with. And that's going to be a quick recap of the other big sports news in New Orleans these days. And that is the New Orleans Pelicans. Pelicans got a win at the Smoothie King Center last night. They beat the Suns 118-103. Covered the +2, tied the series at 2, and just generally, looked frankly pretty amazing there in that second half, guys.
Yeah, they really did.
Go ahead, Spence.
Spencer was there for the game, so let's start with Spencer.
Yeah. All right, I was. They really did. I was there, and the atmosphere in the Smoothie King Center was absolutely electric there. Then they took over in the fourth quarter. I mean, I've never been in the building when it was like that because I've been to a couple regular season games when it wasn't nearly like that. So it was awesome to see it packed and the crowd really into it. And let's just say the crowd did not like Jay Crowder.
That is definitely true. That is definitely true. Jim, you were saying, because I know listen, the Pelicans have made the second round of the playoffs a couple times. Well, once they were the Hornets, once they were the Pelicans in the last 10, 12 years. But this one just has a different feeling because it's a team that's just kind of come together all of a sudden, and a team with a real bright future. It's a lot of fun.
There's no question, and I just want to show this one. See, there still are haters in the house. How anyone could say that there's zero chance for this team to win the series, it boggles the mind. Because according to Caesars Sportsbook, which we'll get to that slide in a minute, I think it's plus 240 to win the series. So that's a little bit different than zero chance. Remember last week when we talked about overreaction Monday? We got a little bit, maybe a little too low after how they played in Sunday's, that first game on the first Sunday. I mean, you can't overreact anymore. They played 4 games now. So I think the Pelicans have a legitimate chance to win this series. I don't necessarily think they're going to win the series. It would not surprise me in the least if they did. And the problem that the Pelicans are going to have in going to Phoenix is the officials let them be very physical last night. And they needed to be like that to win the game, I think. There was a specific play, which Josh Preston, who does some freelancing for us, had retweeted, where I think it was early in the third quarter, where Chris Paul was doing his typical Chris Paul thing. He initiates contact with Herb Green, knowing that Herb Green's going to Herb Jones. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I'm saying Herb. Herb Jones comes back at him and push and basically knocks him to the floor, and there's no call, and Chris Paul's a little peeved about it. Well, that's not going to happen in Phoenix. You do that kind of thing in Phoenix, it's going to get called. And I love the Pelicans' emotions, but Willie Green talking about how they have to keep it all together, and this is a young team we're talking about, and I love the attitude and the moxie. But it's going to be a little bit different in Phoenix, and they're going to have to play a little bit different. They're going to have to figure a way to slow Ayton down, and they're going to have to figure a way to keep Chris Paul from making 5-6 shots in the fourth quarter, which is when the Suns have been effective. We'll see if they can do it. I think they can. I don't know if they will or not, but it's going to be a tight series. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this goes to Game 7 at the minimum.
That's the thing, is they're going to have to win another game in Phoenix. I thought after they split the 2 in Phoenix, of course, your best chance to win the series is to win your remaining 3 home games. And so the Game 3 loss may end up deciding the series. But I agree with you, Jim. I think they have a chance. If you'd like to bet on it, and we'll talk about odds here in a minute, and you are not yet a member at Caesars Sportsbook, it is not only free to join, but a special promo for you to join. Your first bet insured up to $1,100. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars to take advantage of that special offer for bet.NOLA.com viewers. Make a bet. Make a bet on the Pelicans. If you lose, you get all the money back in terms of a bonus bet, and you can try again on something else. So you kind of get 2 cracks at the apple. and a pretty good deal. So promo code NOLACZR, or go to NOLA.com/Caesars to get that promo code. Pretty good deal. So as far as them winning in Phoenix, Devin, what do we think? We haven't heard from you yet. The Suns are 6.5-point favorites in Phoenix, which is a different story. The first two games, they were 10.5 and then 9.5. And so, of course, two things have happened since then. Devin Booker's hurt, and the Pelicans have shown they can compete. So can they pull this thing off Tuesday and take the lead in the series for the first time?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because for the Pelicans, they struggle getting off to a good start against the Suns in Phoenix. And I think, being able to do so in New Orleans is a different story. And this is a Phoenix team that's, coming off a finals berth, and, they're going to come out ready to play. But I think for the Pelicans, they have to continue to get big time play from not only Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, but their rookies. Herb Jones completely took over the game last night. And he did a fantastic job on Chris Paul. But you got to believe the Suns are going to play a lot better when it's all said and done. And I think, for the Pelicans, I like them early on on this line. I think every game has been fairly close except for game one. And the Pelicans have been competitive even in the games that they've lost. So I think as long as they get off to a good start, I think if they find themselves in a tight game down the stretch of the game, I like their closers a little bit better than what Phoenix is rolling out over the last few games.
I mean, they've kind of found their own version of the death lineup with those two rookie stoppers in the lineup. I mean, and it's clear, Spencer, like this is one of those teams that if you're the Suns, you're really starting to dislike the Pelicans. Like Jose Alvarado is one of those guys who will get under your skin. Herb Jones will get under your skin. Now,
yeah, definitely.
That makes you that much more of a fan if you're a Pelicans fan, though. I mean, they're one of those guys you either love to hate them or you just absolutely love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Alvarado was such a difference maker there. Just getting in Chris Paul's head and just getting him rattled. It was amazing. They call him the point god, and he had the undrafted rookie, Jose Alvarado, on him there. Tight on a half court, basically starts on him at half court and just guards him tight, like all the way to the top of the key. And then at that point, a lot of times he could get away with it and then get the shots to go in, but it wasn't happening last night. Chris Paul only scored 4 points. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But yeah, it was a great sight to see. And then Herb Jones too with the blocks. He had 3 big blocks there. And those rookies are something I've never seen. I've never seen 2 rookies like that do what they've been able to do. It's awesome.
Yeah, they've been. I think I saw minutes in the playoffs and by rookies in the Pelicans. Those 2 guys are that and Bones Highland of Denver are the top 3. So 2 of the 3 in New Orleans and going toe to toe with the number 1 seed. Jim, you've kind of called the back and forth of this nature, the back and forth nature of this series so far. Do you see that continuing in Phoenix? I know Monty Williams, look, he was vocal last night after the game, a 42-15 disparity in free throws, which part of that is the end of the game. They got a couple of intentional fouls in there. But as you said, that's not going to be the case in Phoenix. Do you see kind of a role reversal there? The Suns get some calls and Phoenix takes care of this. How do you handicap game 5?
I still want to look at it a little bit more, but my first inclination is to take the Suns here. Minus the 6.5. I think that their crowd probably hates the Pelicans now too. That's the thing about these 7-game series is they can become their own little budding rivalries. And I think Monty Williams gets his point across. I do think that the officials are going to change the way they call this next game. And I do think it's going to be tighter. I think there's going to be some Pelicans in foul trouble. I mean, good thing that they are deep and they're able to go down the list. You talk about Valanciunas seems to always be in foul trouble. Larry Nance picks up quick fouls. Even Jose Alvarado, he'll foul 3 or 4 times and only play in 17 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough spot for the Pelicans. They're going to come out with attitude as well. Jose's the CD Deuce of the Pelicans. Well, I'll tell you this.
I love that.
The difference
he really is.
CD Deuce is just a jerk on the football field. Let's be nice and say it that way. Jose Alvarado, there's nothing to dislike. I mean, he's pesky. He's a pain in the keister, but he doesn't do it. I don't think he does it with the same kind of words. Maybe that's CD.
Well, that's exactly what Kevin follows.
Exactly. Exactly, Kevin. So it's fun. Look, we've said it 1,000 times that no matter what this team does the rest of the way, whether they win this series and move on and play someone else, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, sure, we want them to move on. It's more fun. It's great for our coverage. But I'll tell you this. They've won. They've already won. They've won the hearts of the city. The difference in this team over the course of a few months, the electricity in that place, it's a win-win no matter what happens.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun, and I think it will continue to be a lot of fun. So we need to get quickly through the rest of our NBA playoff talk here so we can get to our mock NFL draft. So I do want to show you some series prices. Jim, you mentioned this: Pelicans plus 240, Suns minus 280. Still substantial favorites. I mean, look, they have home court. They got 2 of the 3 games at home. They're going to be 6+ point favorites in both of those games. So the Pelicans are going to need to spring a significant upset and then win a toss-up game at home as well to win this series. So similar story. I don't know, a little extra juice you have to pay in that Minnesota-Memphis series on both sides. I'm not sure what that's about, but the Grizzlies still favored. That one's going back to Memphis tomorrow. Jazz Mavericks also tied. Game 5 is tonight. Mavs now slight favorites. We told you a week ago, take them at plus 550. So that's looking decent right now. And then the Celtics with a 3-0 lead against the Nets. Anybody still a believer in the Nets? We've been telling you all year to fade that team.
Yeah,
I mean, at 500, Devin. I mean, you didn't take them at plus 500, did you?
I didn't even touch them.
Okay, good. Just making sure. You
can't touch that. And then the other series all appear like they're pretty much over. It's really those top 3 that are still competitive. Could Atlanta steal a game in Miami, make it interesting? Could Toronto steal the game in Philly tonight? Maybe. But I think those series are pretty well decided. Here are tonight's lines for 1 Game 4 and 2 Game 5s. The home team's favored in all 3. Do y'all think the Nets get swept? That might be the question of the night.
You know what? I think they're going to get a game. I think they'll get 1 game because I just think, that they can't go into the off season with KD and Kyrie and they couldn't win a single game. So I expect one of those guys to have just one of those nights where they just need to have it. I think they still lose in 5, but I think the Nets find a way to win tonight's game to save some embarrassment heading into the offseason.
Break out the broom, baby.
I think you may be right. Spencer, you did best bets today and took the Mavericks to bounce back and take a 3-2 lead in that series.
Oh, yeah, feeling good about the Mavericks. Yeah, I thought about the Celtics because I think there's a chance they could break out the brooms. But like Devin said, the Nets are going to be hungry to get at least a game. But, yeah, I feel really good about the Mavs in this one. Luka, it'll be his second game back. And I feel like the supporting cast is bound to do better this time. And the last time it was like, oh, Luka's back. We're all just going to take the night off. I feel like tonight they're going to step up, and the Jazz just don't have enough firepower. I mean, outside of Donovan Mitchell, they don't have any consistent scorers over there.
And the Jazz just 1-3 against the spread in the series, and the win was in Game 1. I think by 1 point they were 5-point favorites and won by 6. So that Game 5 is tonight. So that by the way, is if the Pelicans could get by the Suns, that's who they would play next as the winner of that Dallas and Utah series.
By the way, the public's all over the Mavs. So
I saw that.
Just remember that when you go to bet, you're betting with Drunk Joe and Aunt Mabel. So I warned to put too much on that game.
I'm staying away.
They're
from
right sometimes.
Yeah, and Utah does not look right to me. I just don't like the way they're playing. I don't like. I don't know that I would back. I'm with you.
That is a weird spread, and that's why the public's all over it. It's a really weird spread. It would not surprise me at all if the Mavs win like 1.
Yeah, could be. All right, NBA
you lose
title
if you take
odds.
the Jazz on the money. You lose if you take the Jazz on the money line, and you lose if you take the Mavs by the spread.
And that may be exactly what the books want to happen. That may be where they make all their money. All right, so the Warriors are the favorites now Is that fair, Devin? Do you see Golden State as the most likely team to lift the trophy at this point?
Yeah, I mean they're healthy. They're playing very, very well. I think they're playing a Nuggets team that really overachieve with the roster they have. Obviously, Jokic he's carrying the team right now, but I do think they're the best collection of talent. Phoenix isn't healthy. Boston looks good, but they're playing a Nets team that has just been dysfunctional. So I think based on where we currently sit, I think the Warriors are a smart pick right now to be a favorite because they don't. I mean, no team really in the NBA is going to be able to throw out a lineup maybe outside of Boston that's going to be able to guard all three of those guys. So I think it makes sense why those teams are the top two, and they both play well defensively. I think that's the difference between Golden State and Phoenix. Phoenix hasn't been playing well defensively over the last couple games.
Just want to let Jim know he can still get Brooklyn at 80-1 to win the title.
No. I already have my long shot. I'll just say $7.10.
You had them talking about the Pelicans, and Jim got them at 300-1. I took them when they were 200-1. Now they're 100-1. Don't know if the number will get any lower than that, but it is creeping down.
If they win Game 5, their odds are going to go down to probably 50-1, 60-1 max. If you think the Pelicans can pull off this game, I'm not sure. This is the last chance you're going to get any kind of value on them on a long shot. They're by far, to me, the best long shot to take. So if you want to take the Pelicans and have a little juice on them, put $10 on them, win $1,000. If somehow they shock the NBA world, now's the time to do it. You still can, and I think it's worth a $10 bet.
All right. We'll see what else happens. I still like the Celtics. I've been preaching that for months.
Value now.
And I don't know that there's value now, but I think there's more value on them than there is on Golden State or Phoenix.
The value on
I
either
still
one.
think. But yeah, you've probably missed the boat. Okay, so that's the NBA playoffs. Lots of other stuff going on around New Orleans. The Zurich Classic of New Orleans was great. Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, record-setting tournament, 29 under par. They win that tournament, so congrats to them for winning the PGA stop here. The New Orleans Breakers look like they're the favorites to win the USFL. They thumped Tampa Bay. New Orleans thumping Tampa Bay, and Tom Brady wasn't even there to see it. So had to throw that in there. But the rest of this show, the next 45 minutes or so, are going to be spent on our bet.nola.com NFL mock draft. And before we get started, I do want to throw up this is a big shift. The odds to be the number one pick have shifted just this morning. Aiden Hutchinson of Michigan is no longer the favorite to be the number one pick. He was the odds-on favorite. Now Trayvon Walker of Georgia is the odds-on favorite, and that has crept up. It was like minus 140, minus 170, minus 200. Now it's minus 220 to be the number one pick. So somebody's got some inside info that Jacksonville is leaning toward Trayvon Walker. And honestly, we won't know for 3 or 4 years whether that's the right pick.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the draft, I think a lot of people kind of get caught up in this, but the draft isn't won after you draft someone. It takes maybe until the first contract to know what you're getting out of somebody. So, some teams get a little bit lucky and get early returns, but some players take 3-4 years to develop. And with Walker, I think he's going to be more so on that latter timeline than instant results, which we'll see what happens with the number one pick, but I have a feeling, it's going to be mixed emotions if the Jaguars decide to select Trayvon Walker as the first overall pick after Aiden Hutchinson seemed like the first overall pick pretty much the last couple months.
Yeah, and Spencer the Guru has the number one pick in our Bet.Nola NFL draft, so mock NFL draft, so he will be picking for Jacksonville in just a minute. Then we're going to get on the line. Here's how we're going to do this. Spencer has the number one pick. I'm number 2. Jim, you're number 3. And Devin is number 4. And then what we're going to do with picks 5 and 10 is we're going to go to the Caesars Sportsbook odds board. And the top odds left for any player who hasn't been picked, that will automatically be pick number 5, which is the Giants, and pick number 10, which is the Jets. So the New York teams are going to get the automatic odds pick from Caesars. And by the way, they do have odds for any pick in the top 10, who it will be also for a player to be taken in the top 5 or the top 10. And they also have odds, by the way, for which player will or which position, will be taken by each team with their first pick. And with that said, here are the Saints' odds for their first pick, because we're going to go through the entire first round. So we will do the Saints' picks as well at 16 and 19. Odds for the Saints' first pick, Jim, the quarterback, the most likely. I personally don't see it, but that's what the odds say.
There's been a lot of talk the last couple of weeks, and again, I think it's a Saints always like to throw out the smoke screen. They do it every year, and now the smoke screen is Kenny Pickett, and I just don't. It's not going to happen. I mean, I just don't. I think there are two absolutely glaring needs on this football team, and they're going to be in their offensive lineman and wide receiver. I know they like to talk about best player available and all that junk. They're not going to take necessarily the best player available. They're going to take. I mean, let's just put it this way: if Derek Stingley were to fall down to 16, they're not going to take Derek Stingley. They may make a trade and let someone else take Derek Stingley, but they're going to take. I would be very surprised, assuming they stay at 16 and 19, if they use one of those picks on a quarterback.
I will be stunned if Derek Stingley's still around at 16. But that's what we're about
to find out. I was
just
making a point, though. I was just really making a point that even if some player falls to that spot, they're going to take an O-lineman or a wide receiver, even if it's someone that might seem obvious, along those lines.
Sure. And there are plenty of good receivers and linemen in this draft. So let's get started and see what happens. Again, the ground rules, we're going to rotate picks. Picks 5 and 10 will come off the board automatically based on the odds. But because there's only odds for the first 10 picks, then we'll stop, and just the 4 of us will pick the rest of the round. Okay, so let's start. Pick number 1 in the Bet.NOLA mock draft for 2022 belongs to Spencer the Guru Urquhart, picking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Spencer, you're on the clock.
All righty. Yeah, I know the Trayvon Walker hype train's been rolling and now has him as the favorite for number 1 overall. But if I'm the Jaguars here, I'm going with the guy that's going to make the biggest impact, and that's Aiden Hutchinson. He's just got more upside. I feel like he's a better pass rusher and is a guy that's going to really – that's what they need there, is an impact defense player on a defense that's sorely lacking that type of guy. You know, they haven't had that. They had the Jalen Ramsey era where they had the dominant secondary and a strong D line back then, but it's just not the same anymore. They need to rebuild that, and Hutchinson will be that guy to do that and get him back in that direction. He's a game changer.
All right, so Aiden Hutchinson, despite the reports, Spencer and Jacksonville have changed their minds and taken Aiden Hutchinson with the number 1 pick. Number 2 pick, the Detroit Lions. That's me. And with Trevon Walker still on the board, I'm actually going to pass on him too. Another surprise, I'm going Kayvon Thibodeau of Oregon. This is a guy who has the most raw talent of any of these edge rushers. Everybody needs one of them. The Lions are no exception. And Thibodeau was the number 1 recruit in the country when he went at Oregon. And I don't really understand why he slipped. And I like Thibodeau at number 2. So he is a Detroit Lion, Kayvon Thibodeau of Oregon. All right, number 3, Jim Derry and the Houston Texans with 2 edge rushers off the board.
You undercut me. I was going to take Kayvon Thibodeau there, even if Trayvon Walker was available. So now I'm backed in a corner. If you're the Texans, you're probably shaking your head, and you're like, I guess I got to go with who Caesar Sportsbook thinks should be the first pick of the draft, and that's Trayvon Walker. So we'll take him here. It is clearly one of the Texans' top needs. They also need a cornerback, but I think it's a little too early to reach for Sauce or Derek Stingley here. So the Texans, they're trying to get back to where they were when they had J.J. Watt back in the day, and they take Trayvon Walker.
All right, so Trayvon Walker goes off the board number 3. That's 3 edge rushers in the first 3 picks. Number 4 on the board is the New York Jets and Devin Jackson.
Yeah, so the Jets, they obviously have plenty of needs in obviously receiver, DB, offensive line, but I'm gonna stick offensive line here. I'm gonna go with a guy that played both guard and tackle in college and just makes sense for their scheme. And I understand Mekhi Becton, they selected him a few years ago, but I'm gonna select NC State tackle Ikem Ekwonu from NC State for the Jets pick. I just think you got to build up the trenches. You pick one of the best offensive linemen on the board. They've loved him from the start, and I think it just makes sense for them.
All right, Ikem Ekwonu of NC State, the first offensive lineman off the board to the Jets. That brings us to the number 5 pick, which belongs to the Giants, and we will let Caesars Sportsbook and their odds make that pick for us. So here are the odds for the number 5 pick. And you see Ikem Ekwonu was at plus 250 along with Evan Neal of Alabama. And so because Ekwonu is off the board, the Giants will go ahead and take the other top offensive tackle, and that is Evan Neal of Alabama. And so he is your number 5 pick with the Giants. And that's our top 5, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of semi-surprises there with the 3 edge rushers going off the board first. And really, it's kind of a surprise that Ekwonu would make it to 4th. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. If it does, I'm sure the Jets will be thrilled because I agree with Devin. I think if he's still there at that spot, they would love to take him there. So that would be a great pick for them.
All right, we will get going here in just a second with the next 5. I'm trying to get the top 5 to load here. There we go. Their top 5 picks in the bet.nola.com mock draft. Aiden Hutchinson to Jacksonville, Kayvon Thibodeau to Detroit, Trayvon Walker, Ikem Ekwonu, and then Evan Neal. The 2 New York teams each get an offensive line cornerstone. Okay, so moving on to number 6, the Carolina Panthers, and Spencer the Guru back on the clock.
All right. Yeah, Carolina. Ooh, man, they're in a tough spot here because it's tempting to take a quarterback right here. As much as they would get criticized for it, they're in position to where if they don't take one here, you're risking going into the next season with Sam Darnold as your starter. And do you really want that? I don't know. Matt Rule's on the hot seat over there, but I feel like though they're gonna be a little more disciplined than that. And I think they're going to go ahead and take the left tackle, which they really need. And that's the last elite left tackle left here, Charles Cross from Mississippi State.
All right, Charles Cross off the board. He's a name who has really risen in the last couple of weeks, really. His over-under to be drafted on Caesars is up to 7.5. So he very well could go under that, and that's where Spencer goes. Charles Cross of Mississippi State. And moving on to pick number 7, this is me, and it's the Giants back on the clock. And I actually liked the idea of Thibodeau or Cross here. But barring that, and because the Giants already got their tackle, it'll put Cross in the top 10. I'm going to go to the defensive backfield, and I will take Sauce Gardner of Cincinnati. The cornerback, the top. Now, a lot of people saying Stingley may end up being the top cornerback taken, but I still am going to take Sauce. He's one of those big corners. He'll play well in New York, and that's where the Giants will go. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons, and that is Jim Derry.
Oh, well, we know the Atlanta Falcons don't do anything close to they're always messing stuff up. Their clear need is wide receiver. In fact, if you put their needs in order from 1 through 4, it would be wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, and then 4th, it would need wide receiver. So they're going to go with a quarterback and shock the NFL world here. I would not be surprised if the Falcons draft down. I think that the Falcons, obviously, they're putting all their eggs in the Deshaun Watson basket. Obviously, they need a quarterback too. And Marcus Mariota isn't the answer. They're going to be looking to make a splash. I tell you what, here's your first surprise tonight. Malik Willis goes with the 8th pick of the NFL draft.
All right. Liberty quarterback Malik Willis to Atlanta. The new guy Saints fans will love to hate. And that is the first quarterback off the board at number 8. Devin, you're number 9, and the Seattle Seahawks. Where are the Seahawks going? They need a quarterback, too. They might be upset that Willis is gone.
Yeah, that was actually if Willis lasted past 8, I had a feeling that he might go between 6 and 8. But that's going to be my pick. But now, Seahawks are on the clock, and they always do weird picks in the first round. So with that being said, and this one I don't think has been mocked quite a bit to them, but I think it makes sense for them to go tackle and go Trevor Penning, the tackle out of Northern Iowa. And I think they're just going to love what they. I just have a feeling they're going to do something like this on draft day, where they take someone a little bit higher than people are expecting. So I'm gonna go with Trevor Penning here for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that was a guy who the Saints, I think, have their eye on at maybe 16 to try to get an offensive tackle. And you're right, the Seahawks do weird things in the first round typically, but they're also typically picking late in the first round. This is their first top 10 pick in years, I think. So we'll see. We'll see what the Seahawks do. But that is a shakeup, and we're not doing trades. There's going to be trades on draft night, of course. We're not doing trades tonight, but there will be surprises, and so I like that, a surprise. So now, number 10. We'll bring up the Caesars odds for the number 10 pick. And our favorites are both wide receivers. We haven't had one taken yet. Jamison Williams of Alabama, Garrett Wilson of Ohio State have the same odds. So I'm going to let it's the Jets. Who should pick for the Jets, whether they get Jamison Williams or Garrett Wilson? Spencer, you're next up.
Okay,
go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think I don't think it's too much to say that Jamison Williams has been the more talked about guy. Garrett Wilson is higher on some lists. Like I think PFF, he's a little bit higher, but I think Jamison Williams has been the more talked about guy, and I think he will go first.
All right, we'll go with him. That's fair. I'm glad somebody broke the tie for us. So that's our top 10, and now we're going to take Caesars out of the equation because they don't have the exact odds picks for picks beyond 10, at least not at this point. But Jim, we had some surprises in there.
Absolutely. I wasn't doing it just to. It's not like a fantasy draft where I enjoy taking a pick from someone right before they're supposed to pick. So Devin, I'm sorry that your Seahawks did not get exactly who they wanted to get there. But Trevor Penning at 9. Look, I know he's going up the draft a little bit, and absolutely, I think he is a clear target for the Saints. If he's still there at 16, he is, in my mind, the favorite he fits the mold for who the Saints wanted to tackle. That is super high. But again, you don't know what Atlanta and Seattle is going to do. In Seattle, if they do get I think they want Malik Willis there, and they could easily get crossed up. They do. Who knows what they're going to do? I agree with Devin.
All right, so those are picks 6 through 10. A lot of talent off of that board. Let's move on to number 11. We're going back to the guru. It is the Washington Commanders. You get to make the first ever Commanders draft pick in team history.
Oh yeah, yep. They defensive. There's a couple of stud defensive backs still out there where the Commanders could go in that direction, but I don't think they will because their defense is pretty solid. It's their offense that really needs help, especially their receiver room, because outside of Terry McLaurin, who's kind of disgruntled about his contract on top of it, they don't really have anything there. They don't have any game-breaking wide receiver. So I think they're going to change that on Thursday night and select the guy who, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling out of anyone in this receiver class, and that's Drake London from USC.
All right, the Trojans' top wide receiver going east to the nation's capital in Washington. That's pick number 11. I am picking 12th for the Minnesota Vikings. And quite frankly, I'm pretty pumped that Derek Stingley's still around. And so Jordan Jefferson is going to get him an LSU buddy in Minnesota, and Derek Stingley will be pick number 12. I would not be pumped if that actually happened because I have a big bet on Stingley to go in the top 9. The under on is 9.5. But if I'm Minnesota, I am pumped up at Stingley, and I will take him gladly at number 12.
I think that it'd be interesting because I think the Vikings might be more inclined to take the hometown guy, which is who I'm going to take next. The Chargers, besides edge rusher, who we've already taken, I happen to get 2 Texans pick. I don't know how that fell that way, but I think they need a cornerback next. And I think actually Trent McDuffie is probably maybe more likely to go to the Vikings. I'm going to take him here, and the Texans will say thank you because I actually think in the long term, I think Trent McDuffie is going to be a better defensive player. Sorry, LSU fans.
That's quite a prediction. McDuffie's good though. Don't get me wrong. Trent McDuffie of Washington going number 13 to the Texans. That brings us back to Devin and the Baltimore Ravens picking at number 14.
Yeah, I think they've made no mistake that they want someone in the interior on the defensive line that can make things happen. And I just think this pick makes sense. I think the Baltimore Ravens take Jordan Davis from Georgia, the defensive lineman. I just think they look for those type of players. He's an athletic freak, and he just fits what they look for. Just absolutely absurd testing at the combine and just disruptive force on that Georgia defensive line, him and Trayvon Walker. So I'm going to go Jordan Davis here, defensive lineman from Georgia for the Ravens pick here.
I love that. That might be the most obvious one of the whole. I mean, the Ravens and these great interior defenders just seem to be a match made in heaven. So Jordan Davis goes 14th to the Ravens. Number 15, the Philadelphia Eagles originally had 3 picks in this first round, traded one of them to the Saints. Of course, they're still left with numbers 15 and 18. And it's very interesting, the dynamic there. Saints and Eagles made the trade, and the Eagles have the 2 picks directly in front of the Saints. So they could either pick them or they could trade the pick to somebody if, let's say that Penning is still available and somebody else wants an offensive tackle, makes a trade with the Eagles. All sorts of things could happen. But for now, we'll let Spencer pick for the Philadelphia Eagles at number 15.
Yeah, if I'm the Eagles, I'm a little upset right now with Baltimore because Jordan Davis, I feel like would have been a good fit there with Fletcher Cox getting up in age. But if I'm Philly here, I'm going to pivot to the offensive side of the ball and get a receiver. I know this would be the 3rd year in a row they take a receiver in the first round, but they just don't have much there. So I think they're going to have to do it again. Because outside of Devontae Smith, none of those guys are reliable. So with this 15th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Garrett Wilson from Ohio State.
Didn't we have him at number 10?
No, that was Jameson.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. We did.
Williams.
No, that's a good Lickman. I'm sorry. Yep. Garrett Wilson of Ohio State is your 15th pick. And really, kind of as we look at picks 11 through 15, there are 4 consensus top receivers, and only 3 of them have been taken. So not a bad spot for the Saints to be in, Jim.
Not at all. But I will say this. I'm going to repeat myself, but I really think that Penning is their number 1 target. So we'll see what happens there. There still are tackles on the board. But in this case, they may pivot. One thing the Saints are good at are going with the flow. Maybe they make a trade down, or maybe there are a couple receivers I'm surprised are still on the board, even though there have been some taken. Who knew the fantasy guru would take a wide receiver with that 15th pick? But you got to take a skill position player. It's going to be an interesting slot if this is how the draft goes. If these were the actual 15 picks, the Saints would be in an interesting spot right here, and I think they would take their entire allotted time.
Yeah, it would be very interesting, and I'm next on the clock, and I'm going to make the Saints pick here. There's a lot of different directions they could go. I think this is a situation. I know they don't do it often. It's a situation where maybe the Saints trade down, try to pick up another 2nd-round pick or something. It's a pretty deep draft. It's not quite as talented at the top. However, especially because we're not allowing trades here, I think the Saints ultimately got those 2 first-round picks because they're short about 2 quality starters from having a contender. And one of those spots is at offensive tackle. One of them is at wide receiver. If Trevor Penning hadn't come off the board early, I would have liked the offensive tackle. I would have taken him. It's a more sure thing. Since he's off the board, I'm going to go back to receiver. And by the way, I love Treylon Burks of Arkansas, and I would be tempted to hold off and see if I could get him at 19. But just to make sure that I get one of these guys, I'm taking Chris Olave of Ohio State at number 16. So that is the Saints pick at 16. Up next on the clock is Jim Derry, the LA Chargers at number 17.
Well, it's funny because I already had a note written down here that if you passed on Penning, I was going to make fun of you. So I'm glad that you brought up that you would have selected that pick, so I can find something else to make fun.
You make notes of when you're going to make fun of me?
Oh, 100%.
Spontaneous. I'm a little disappointed.
Oh, a lot of times it's spontaneous, but I was ready and prepared to make fun of you there. because the Chargers were going to take Penning if you didn't. So anyway, obviously, we think that Penning's moving way up the draft board. With that, there's no question that the biggest need for the Los Angeles Chargers is right tackle. Really, their offensive line kind of stunk it up last year, really. And they need to protect Justin Herbert. Their issues last year, Brian Bulaga, who was supposed to start at right tackle last year, was injured with a core muscle injury. He was later released. Storm Norton, who came in and replaced him. Every Chargers game I watched, the color analyst was really trying to be as nice as possible to Storm Norton, but there was no way to be nice to him. So with that, the Chargers are going to tackle, and they're going to take Tyler Smith of Tulsa with that pick. Bernard Raymond of Central Michigan, also an option, but we're going to go Tyler Smith of Tulsa.
And it's interesting because he's a guy projected, if you look at the over-under at Caesars, to be a late first-round pick. But this is what happens if you get enough teams who need one position. All of a sudden, those guys who have end-of-first-round talents end up getting taken 15 picks higher. So we could certainly see that. All right, back to the Philadelphia Eagles, and this time with Devin Jackson making their pick at number 18.
Yeah, this pick is a little surprising because this is a player that I didn't expect to be here all the way to 18. But along with the needs, they need a receiver, they need defensive back help, and the consensus top safety here in the draft. And I'm surprised he made it out of the top 10 and top 15. I'm gonna go with Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. Just makes sense with him sliding down the board. That the Eagles are obviously they want to add interior defensive lineman help, but when you have Kyle Hamilton on the board, you need more safeties on the back end that can make plays and go up against some of the talent that's in the with the Commanders and the Cowboys. You got to have an answer for that. So I think Kyle Hamilton is the pick here.
All right, I agree with you. I'm surprised he slid that far. I thought about taking him for Minnesota at 12. Thought they needed a corner a little bit more, so the Eagles get Kyle Hamilton. That brings us to Spencer and back to the Saints, pick number 19. Very interested to see what you do here, Spencer.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot because the Saints, there's nothing really obvious here, since they got Olave already. And there's a lot of this draft, we've seen the tackles fly off the board. I already have 5 offensive tackles going. So this is an interesting spot. So I know Saints fans are going to hate me for this, but I honestly think they'll probably trade it because someone will want to trade up ahead of the Steelers to get him, but there's still a chance. Maybe they do it. I'll be mad if they do, but I'll go with Kenny Pickett here.
I had a feeling you were going to say that because this is the scenario in which, to me, the scenario in which the Saints do make a quarterback, do take a quarterback. Number one of these guys, Pickett, probably would have to slide down the board. And number 2, the offensive tackles and or the wide receivers, the top tier is all gone. And so then you're like, okay, well, what do we do with this pick? Do we trade it back? Or do we try to take the QB of the future? But I can just tell by looking at his face, Jim doesn't like it.
They're never going. They're never going to take someone that has been talked about. They're going to take. I mean, it's clear they've been putting out smoke screens about Kenny Pickett in hopes that someone drafts them ahead of them to get one. That's one more player that drops towards their lap. They're actually talking. I think that I don't want to say zero chance because I don't want to sound like the commenter before the Pelicans had zero chance to beat the Suns. But I think there is slightly above zero chance they take Kenny Pickett.
Okay. Spencer disagrees with you. Spencer's the GM, man. So he went with it.
Interesting.
I don't want to be a GM. I can tell you that right now. I have enough trouble being a fantasy GM. And so I don't want that role at all. And I don't want to be awake 22 hours a day, except for maybe 2 weeks in the summer. No
doubt. But I do want to pause here just for a second now that we've gotten through the Saints picks. Jim, in this scenario, what would you have done at 16 and 19 if Penning is off the board? Would you have taken Tyler Davis from Tulsa? Would you have taken Olave like I did? What would have been your choice first at 16?
If it went as you already took Olave at 16, I think that's a decent pick. I'm going to go tackle first. I think the tackles are in shorter supply. So I think I'm going to go tackle first, unless the 4 or 5 guys that I'm targeting are gone. In that case, if you're targeting if there are 4 tackles that you really like in this draft and 3 of them go, That's a scenario where I could see the Saints trading up to make sure that they get one of the 4 guys they want. They've done it before. So I think that they're going to get one of those 4 guys there at 16. And then I think Olave is a guy that is certainly on their list. I think they could wait till 19 to get him. There are guys, you talk about Treylon Burks, maybe they trade down a little bit and get him a little bit later if they think he's going to be hanging around. But this is a pretty good wide receiver draft. So I don't think 16 is the spot where they're going to take a receiver. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but again, I think,
and that's a good point. I mean, I agree with you, and Devin, I want to get your thoughts too. Looking back on the way it went, if it goes this way, maybe you do take a Tyler Smith at 16, and then if Olave is gone, you still have Treylon Burks, who I really like at 19. And so I don't know. I don't know what you do. I mean, it's a difficult spot, but by taking Olave at 16, I did kind of box Spencer into a corner there. If that had been the scenario, you take Olave at 16, Tyler Davis goes at 17, then what do you do at 19, Jim? Do you trade it?
Yeah, trade back.
Yeah, Spence, I agree. I think that's and Devin, I'd like to hear your take on that, but I think if they get the tackle they want at 16, I think it's a perfect chance for them to trade down. They don't trade down a lot. They're not like the Patriots who love to trade down and build up picks. But I think this is the perfect scenario, like we talked about. It really makes this Eagles trade make sense to me if they were able to grab an extra second-round pick and maybe just move back a little bit. It's a perfect spot to do that. Devin, don't you think?
Yeah, I think at 16 and 19, what you want to happen, or what I guess their mindset is that there's a lot of smoke about quarterbacks going earlier than we expect. So that means good players are pushed down the board, and that means, the Saints are going to get who they want, essentially. So I think in that situation, either you take another position of need if he's higher on your board, or you just trade back, because it doesn't make sense to take a player if you don't see a long-term plan with, basically. So in that situation, I think if, tackles are off the board, and I mean, if you like Tyler Smith, you take him as early as you can, because there's a good chance another team will be trading up to get him as well. And then all of a sudden you don't have a tackle at all, and you're just picking a guy because you need one. So I think, you go for the position of need at first, but also, be flexible about, if there's a player that you also love on the board, go ahead and take him, because there's a good chance he won't be there at the next pick, because you don't know what these other teams are planning to take.
One last thing too, Zach. One last thing too. I think we have failed to mention the significance of this is the first draft without Sean Payton in the room in 16 years. So I don't know. I don't think any of us really know how that's going to affect anything. So as far as we talk about, they don't trade down a lot. It's probably because Sean Payton doesn't want to. So I think that would add to the increased odds that maybe they are able to trade down more. I think Mickey Loomis is going to have way more of an effect on this. I'm not saying he hasn't had an effect on previous drafts, but we all know that the man that was in charge, the head man in charge, and that was Sean Payton. So I think this is a draft where Mickey Loomis probably takes more command than maybe he would normally take, especially with Dennis Allen, as he's not a rookie head coach, but he's pretty close to one as far as head coaches go. So I think Mickey Loomis is going to have a huge impact on this draft, and we'll see what happens. So, but none of that has been accounted for, and it's hard to account because we don't know what's going to happen there.
No, that's a fair point. And honestly, just listening to you guys, I'm having a little bit of buyer's remorse at 16 by taking Olave, which was sort of a safe, obvious pick at that point. Kyle Hamilton's still on the board. Saints still need a safety. Wouldn't have been a bad pick either. And you take Kyle, no. if he happens to drop to that point, and you can take Kyle Hamilton, and then at 19, you take the best tackle or receiver available and use your 2 first-round picks that way. The Saints really have 3 spots where they still need a starter. It's safety, tackle, and wide receiver. And so 2 of them can be taken care of in the first round. The other one, either the second round or will have to be taken care of in free agency. So interesting stuff. Moving on to number 20, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And since the Saints take Kenny Pickett with Spencer's pick, that was really my thought for the Steelers. But with him gone, I'm going to go ahead, and I've mentioned a couple times already that I really like him. I'm going to take Trayvon Burks out of Arkansas, the wide receiver. And whether it's Mitch Trubisky for a year, maybe the Steelers trade for another trade this pick and get a quarterback in the second round or something. Whoever it is going to need weapons. I'm going to go ahead and take Traylon Burks of Arkansas here. So that is picks number 16 through 20, and really saw a run on wide receivers. 5.5 is the number on wide receivers in the first round. What do we think of that? Over or under 5.5?
I'm going to take over because teams like the Packers in the back half of the first round, maybe the Cowboys will be interested in Burks if he were to fall to 24. And just, with how saturated the receiver market is, once that run started, in the early teens, it just continues to go. And the Packers are going to need receiving help, with Devontae Adams gone, and I'll be hard pressed to find them not taking a receiver at the end of the first round, along with the Chiefs. I know they added a few guys here and there, but they also need a true bona fide stud at receiver. So I think it's a good possibility that over 5.5 will certainly happen by pretty much near the end of the first round. I think there's going to be a few guys that get selected a little earlier than people expect to.
And moving on to pick. I'm sorry, Spencer. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I'm with y'all on that over to 5.5 because I was say on best bets today I threw in a little prop on the Christian Watson, the receiver from North Dakota State. His draft position was set at 40.5, and I felt like that was a good play to go with the under there.
All right, very good. And by the way, Spencer and Devin and Jim and myself too, but Spencer and Devin especially, some film watching gurus, and they will have stuff on bet.nola.com for you on the draft all week, including some bet recommendations. Okay, moving on, and it is Jim Derry's pick. Number 21, the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, who you take?
Well, first off, again, a great position to trade down because I think one of the guys they're going to be targeting here, they need cornerbacks. They need wide receivers as well. I think this is their top two needs. Perfect position. The guy I'm about to pick because we don't do trades. I think they maybe get him a little later. But what is Bill Belichick like? He likes heady players who have played for heady coaches and successful coaches. And even though he hasn't been a head coach that long, I think Dave Aranda has done. We all know that is the defensive guru. And I think when you're looking at cornerback, you're talking about Jalen Petrie of Baylor, who was able to shut down big-time receivers in the Big 12, and I think he's a perfect fit for the Patriots. If someone else who needed a cornerback here might not pick him that high, but I think he's the perfect fit for the Patriots, and that's who Bill Belichick will go for.
All right, so we have kind of going on. This is about the time in the first round you start to see that, is you get some guys who, wait, I didn't know he was a first-round prospect, and then if you haven't seen your guy taken, you start to think, well, how far is he going to fall? And so we're at that point in the first round. Moving on to number 22, Devin, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, this is a interesting pick because, like I said, they are in need of a receiver. They need some receiving help, and that's one of their biggest needs heading into the draft. So as I look at kind of the available receivers, obviously the top names have been taken, Williams, Olave, London, Burks, and Wilson. But I think, and this is a player we just talked about, I think Christian Watson here goes off the board to the Packers. And I think they select him because they need a true deep threat. And I think he can bring that to the Packers room and try to retool and get back to championship contention.
All right, that is pick number 22, the sixth wide receiver off the board, just like we talked about, the over 5.5. Very possible. Moves us to pick number 23, Spencer the Guru for the Arizona Cardinals.
All right, yeah, if I'm the Cardinals here, I'm smiling from ear to ear because I see the perfect replacement for Chandler Jones right here, and that's Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher from Florida State. Really surprised he fell this far. He's a guy that I could see going in definitely the top 15, maybe even the top 10. So if the Cards can get in here, that's a steal.
That is absolutely a steal. And I have to be completely honest, I kind of forgot his name was out there. I mean, that's just a fantastic pick for anybody in that 15 to 20 range if you can get him. And my guess is that if he was still out there, probably somebody trades up to get him at some point before the Cardinals get him. But in this reality, they just figured it out and got him. So that's a coup for the Cardinals. Number 24, the Dallas Cowboys. That's my pick. And I am going to go with the first linebacker in the draft. We've gone 23 picks without a linebacker. Nakobe Dean of Georgia, the Bulldogs' third first-round pick, comes off the board here. Nakobe Dean to the Cowboys. That's pick number 24. Number 25 is the Buffalo Bills, and that's you, Jim.
Well, the Bills don't have a ton of needs, but if you look and see where they can probably get a little bit better and where they may be looking, I'm thinking cornerback, and there already have been a few taken off the board. But one of the names I'm kind of surprised that has made it as far as Daxton Hill of Michigan. So he's from up north. He knows how to play in the cold weather. Send him to Buffalo. Daxton Hill, Michigan.
Michigan D-back going to Buffalo. And this is the part of the draft, guys, where you get some teams that are real good and are just looking for that last final piece. But we've also seen teams like the Saints, they just take best available here. So which strategy do you prefer?
Go ahead, Devin. You go there.
Yeah, I think for teams, especially playoff teams, you just find one or two guys that fit what you need. It doesn't matter really about necessarily value, even if they're like second or third round among most people. You get your guy and you just go out and plug him in and hopefully he's someone that makes a difference. So value kind of goes off the board once you get later in the first round. It doesn't really matter as much, because those guys still get a guaranteed fifth option. And I think that's valuable for teams that don't love this quarterback class, but maybe want to kick the tires on one, and maybe we'll have one here in the next few picks as we round up this first round.
All right, so moving on now to pick number 26. Who are we at? Devin, that's you, I believe, and that's the Tennessee Titans.
Yep. For Tennessee, they're a team that's confusing because they have the pieces to be a good team, and edge is one of their, or defensive end is one of their needs, but I don't really see one here that I love for their team. So I'm going to make another surprise here. I'm going to select Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati for the Tennessee Titans because they clearly don't have a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is going to take you far in the playoffs. Had the number one overall record, and they couldn't get it done. And I think it's going to be time for them to start looking towards the future because behind Tannehill, they have Logan Woodside. He hasn't played really a snap in the NFL at all. And if he hasn't at this point, I don't think he will, even when Tannehill moves on. So I think they take Desmond Ridder here.
All right. I thought about him for Pittsburgh at number 20, but he goes 26th to Tennessee. That brings us to number 27 and Spencer for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
All righty. Yeah, if I'm the Bucks, I'm pretty happy here because they could use another guard. I know they just traded for Shaq Mason, but they could use an upgrade at left guard, and I think they'll do that here with the top guard in this class, and that's Zion Johnson from BC.
Yeah, and that's a name that's fallen. We've had a few surprises, and when there are surprises, somebody's got to fall. So Boston College guard Zion Johnson goes to Tampa Bay. Brings us to pick number 28. That's me for the Green Bay Packers. And I got to look back here. What did the Packers get at 22? What'd you get for them? You got a wide receiver. Okay. That's right. So at 28 for the Packers, with those guys off the board, I am going to go for a fourth Georgia Bulldog, and that is Lewis Cine, a safety, to try to shore up that Green Bay secondary a little bit. That's Lewis Cine, C-I-N-E, at number 28. Number 29 belongs to Jim Derry and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, my final pick here. So we're going to go with a little bit of surprise. Yeah, I think the Chiefs also in a position. This is a pick they got from the 49ers through the Dolphins. So why not make this a pick you traded a fourth time, right? Or a third time, I guess. But that we can't do trades. I'm going to go with a surprise. And there's a player that I really like in this draft that could make a big impact. I don't think he's going to go in the first round, but since I want to bring his name up, and he would be a good fit with the Chiefs, who need a wide receiver. Now that Tyreek is gone, I'm going to go with Jalen Tolbert of South Alabama, who, he has big play capabilities. Kansas City loves the big play capability. He had averaged more than 17 yards a catch in his last 2 seasons. He had more than 2,500 yards with 146 catches. Jalen Tolbert of South Alabama, my surprise pick here at number 29.
All right. And that is a 7th wide receiver off the board, and the Chiefs certainly need one. They have back-to-back picks. Could see them packaging 29 and 30, trying to move into the top 5 wide receivers. Possible. Devin, you are also on the clock for the Kansas City Chiefs at number 30.
Yeah, for the Chiefs, they just need more good football players. And for me, I see them address receiver. I know there's some need at edge, but I think they can get a guy on day 2. So with this pick, I'm going to go with Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson. I'm going to add a cornerback for them because secondary has not been a strong position of contention for them. That is something they struggle with, and they need someone that's going to be able to play man defense, especially in the playoff time. So I'm going to go with Andrew Booth Jr. here.
Funny you say that, Devin. That was my other pick. If it wasn't going to be Tolbert, I actually had Booth ahead of Tolbert, but I said, you know what? It's my last pick. I'm going to go a little bit of a surprise here, but that's actually who I had in that spot there.
Love it. Love it. All right. Last 2 picks now. Spencer, the Cincinnati Bengals. What new toy are you getting for Joe Burrow?
Oh, well, they got a lot of new toys to protect him up front at the O-line upgrades. They signed like 3 pretty good O-linemen, so I think they're going to go ahead and get him some help on the other side of the ball in the secondary where they got burned in the Super Bowl on the with cornerbacks. I think they're going to go with the next best available cornerback, and that's Kyer Elam from Florida.
Okay, so Elam of Florida goes to the Bengals, and that is Kaiir if you're scoring at home. The Florida defensive back going to Cincinnati. And that brings us to number 32, the Detroit Lions. They also had pick number 2. They got their defensive end. Guy I like is Purdue's George Karlaftis, but I don't see the Lions taking 2 defensive ends. And so I'm going to go with the heir apparent to Jared Goff, and I'm taking Matt Corral out of Ole Miss here with pick number 32. And that will be your kind of final surprise for the first round. And that concludes our bet.nola.com mock draft, guys.
Yeah, lots of surprises, lots of guys falling down the board, rising up the board. But I think that's, I think it's good to have these different situations where, it's not the same picks going to the same teams every time. So this is not how every team thinks. You identify their needs and then you figure out, who they may take or who may fit with them. But in the end, that player might get set like they're right before you. So you got to quickly pivot. So I think it's pretty indicative on how the draft typically goes.
Absolutely. Takeaways for you guys from doing this exercise, Jim. What stood out to you?
What stood out to me is that none of us did what so many fantasy owners do, and that's draft someone that's already been drafted. I am absolutely floored and proud of my guys here that we didn't do that. We see it in every fantasy draft and every knuckle. So there's always a knucklehead that does it 3, 4, 5 times. Spence knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. And none of us did it. So I'm proud of that fact. But other than that,
I did accuse Spencer of doing it, but I was wrong. So I guess that's
so you're the knucklehead.
Yeah,
is the point.
We knew that.
What surprised me is the talent at the offensive tackles. Again, a huge need for the Saints. Bunch of them going for the Saints pick. Is that how it's going to go? If so, maybe a little panic in that room on airline drive. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think there's going to be as many wide receivers picked as we have here. I think that's a ton. I think there's going to be some big – this is going to be one of those drafts where, Zach, you and I being in Vegas on Friday, I think there's going to be – the first part of that second round is going to be super fun. It's going to be – there are going to be some names a lot of names that people are going to be talking about. How did he make it to day 2? I think there's going to be plenty of that. So, the picks we made all make sense in my opinion, but we don't know what these teams are thinking. We don't even know what our own team's thinking. So they're not going to follow this way, but it sure was fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll recap it real quick here. Our top 5, Aiden Hutchinson goes number 1, even though it sure looks like Travon Walker is getting a lot of momentum for that spot. But Spencer, we're not predicting. We're saying what we would do in those shoes, and Spencer took Aiden Hutchinson number 1. That started a run of 3 straight defensive ends or edge players, Kayvon Thibodeau of Oregon at number 2, and Travon Walker of Georgia, who is now projected to be the number 1 pick, going number 3 to the Texans, followed by Ikem Ekwonu of NC State and Evan Neal of Alabama. Those are your first 2 offensive linemen, and then a 3rd offensive lineman. So 3 defensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen. Charles Cross of Mississippi State. Had Sauce Gardner go to the Giants at number 7, and the first quarterback Malik Willis at 8. Trevor Penning, the Northern Iowa tackle. This is the pick that would make the Saints sweat a little bit, I think, if it actually happened this way at number 9, because I think they like him in the teens. And then Jamison Williams of Alabama to the Jets. That Trevor Penning pick, Spencer, if that happens, the Saints are going to have to regroup.
Right. Yeah, that would kind of throw things off for a lot of teams, because, you know, a lot of teams that are like, even Baltimore might like Trevor Penning and the Chargers and all those teams in the teens that are thinking he could make it. If he goes, and yeah, it's either you reach for Tyler Smith or you pivot to a different position or trade down. Yeah, it's going to be fun. That's the fun of it. That one pick like that throws it all off, and then it's chaos from there. That's why all these mock drafts never pan out.
Oh, and let's face it, like, we look at the board and we look at the odds at Caesars or elsewhere and say, okay, well, this is the top offensive tackle, and there's a gap between Penning and Tyler Smith. The teams don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, there might be a team out there that has Trevor Penning as their top offensive tackle in the entire draft. There might be a team who has him lower than Tyler Smith. And the question is, is your scouting department good enough to nail those picks? And so if that's the case, you feel comfortable waiting for Tyler Smith, well, then you don't need to trade up. If you don't, you better trade up. So that's where it gets hard to predict. Picks 11 through 15, we started our run on wide receivers here. Drake London going to the Commanders at 11. Derek Stingley off the board at number 12. Trent McDuffie, 13 to the Texans. First defensive tackle was Jordan Davis to the Ravens at 14. Garrett Wilson to the Eagles at 15. And then we got the Saints' Chris Olave at number 16. We talked about Tyler Smith to the Chargers. Kyle Hamilton free falls to 18th, and lucky Eagles to get him at 18th. Kenny Pickett to the Saints. That would cause quite a bit of reaction. And Traylon Burks to the Steelers at number 20. Devin, if Kyle Hamilton falls to 16, I don't think I asked you this specifically. The Saints probably should take him over almost anybody. They need a safety, right?
Yeah, you run the card in. He's just one of those players that, you know, I know the Saints are already a great defense and they have plenty of depth, but you can add a player like that, that's a true, you know, ball hog. And, you know, you saw what Marcus Williams was able to do in his high moments. You can get a lot of that play and more from Kyle Hamilton. So I think for the Saints, if he somehow falls to 16, and I understand, you know, tackle is there, the tackle you want is there. It's going to be a tough one between, you know, someone you need and someone, you know, that could upgrade your defense. But with him on the board is someone, you know, a lot of teams have varying grades on him, but most of them have like top 10, top 15 picks. I think the Saints will be smart to go ahead and select him and just let everything else play out, because they do have pick 19. They do have some other picks to package if they wanted to trade right back up for 17, for instance, and get the tackle they want if there was still a tackle on the board.
Definitely. 21 through 25, a couple of surprises in here. Jalen Petrie of Baylor going to the Patriots. Christian Watson, a guy Spencer mentioned he liked, North Dakota State wide receiver to Green Bay. Jermaine Johnson of Florida State falls all the way to 23, might have been the biggest faller on the entire board. Spencer took him for Arizona at 23, followed by Nakobe Dean and Daxton Hill. And then we wrapped it up like this. A couple more quarterbacks, Desmond Ridder to Tennessee, Matt Corral to Detroit at the end. And in between, Zion Johnson of Boston College, Lewis Seen of Georgia, Jalen Tolbert, South Alabama, and Andrew Booth of Clemson, both to the Chiefs. Then Kyer Elam of Florida to the Cincinnati Bengals. Spencer, if Jermaine Johnson falls that far, the Cardinals might just hire you as their GM.
It'll take a genius though to make that selection. I feel like if that happens, they will run to the podium quicker than we can see them. That pick will be in
No doubt about it. Well, hey, the next time we talk to you, Jim and I will be live from Las Vegas from Caesars Palace on Thursday night at the book, and this time we mean the big book at Caesars Palace, just in the hours leading up to the draft. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk to some of our Saints team about what the Saints might do. We'll talk about Derek Stingley and where he might fall, and it's just going to be a ton of fun. We'll have a lot for you. Get your questions and comments ready. Let us know what you would like to know from Las Vegas on draft day. And at the same time, Spencer will be in New Orleans for the Pelicans game. And so we might set up a little double at the book action cross country. Jim and I at Caesars Palace. Spencer could be at Harrah's. It's going to be a hell of a night.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
It's going to be a crazy night. I don't know how we're going to pull that off because I think the NFL draft that first round will probably be going pretty much through the Pelicans game. So I don't know how we're going to have to. Good thing I got YouTube TV. We're going to put it on our phone, or there's a doubt of. I don't know. We're going to have to find a way to watch it too. So it's going to be a fun night. And on Datitude on Wednesday morning, going to have Adam Chernoff of Covers.com. He's going to talk more about the odds and how to make bets. If you're interested in betting on the NFL draft, how to go about making those bets and where your thought process is going to be. I mean, so really looking forward to that. And then, like you said, Zach, being there. And then also we're going to have David Grubb on, who's Pelicans guru. He has got a Pelicans podcast, Pelicans blog. We're going to talk about Pels Game 5 on Wednesday morning on Datitude. And then live from Vegas on Friday morning.
Yeah, so tune into Datitude tomorrow and on Friday, some NFL draft betting talk. And, of course, on Thursday at our regular time of 4 o'clock Central Time, we will be live from Vegas and from Harrah's. So we'll look forward to that. By the way, if you don't want the Pelicans to overlap with the NFL draft too much, root for the 76ers to eliminate the Raptors tonight and root for the Heat to eliminate the Hawks tomorrow night. Because if those two series end, then the only games on Thursday are going to be Pelicans Suns and then also Mavs and Jazz Game 6. And since the Jazz are further west at home in that game, they probably get the late game. Pelicans might get a 6:30 tip and be wrapped up by 9 o'clock probably before the Saints make a pick, or at least not too long before the Saints make a pick.
I have a hard time believing that they'd make the Suns play at 4:30 local time.
Somebody's got to do it. So if that happens, there will be 2 Western Conference games, and somebody ought to be at 6:30, the other at 9. So we'll see. But that's what you root for if you're a Pels fan. You don't want to be too distracted during the game and during the draft. So until then, we will see you at 4 o'clock on Thursday. Jim has Datitude tomorrow. Make sure you check that out, and we will have coverage on
Wednesday, Zach.
So I'm sorry, on Wednesday
morning.
Bet.nola.com all weekend long has your coverage on both the Pelicans and the draft. And make sure you take advantage of our special offer. First bet insured up to $1,100. NOLA.com/Caesars is the URL, or promo code NOLA CZR. Until then, for our producer Patrick McGee, Devin Jackson, Jim Derry, and Spencer the Guru Urquhart, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for tuning in.